Does your deck want to go first or second? This is a question that comes up a lot when deck building in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! But what exactly does it mean? Traditionally, deck building theory, at least as I learned it, doesn't concern itself with who goes first or second. After all, that's usually up to random chance. In today's game, though, this distinction between a go-first deck and a go-second deck actually plays a pretty major role in card choice, and in determining whether a deck concept is viable at all in the first place. Before I get to that, though, I should explain what exactly I mean by a go-first and a go-second deck. To put it in its most simple terms, the difference is offense and defense. A go-first deck is all about building up defenses that prevent your opponent from playing, while a go-second deck is all about destroying those defenses, or OTKing your opponent through them. Now, there have always been decks based around these strategies. I mean, counter fairies have been around forever, and they're the quintessential go-first deck, all about setting up a defense with counter traps to disrupt your opponent and prevent them from playing. Likewise, from Cyber Dragons up to Fluffles, there have always been decks focused on tearing apart boards and going for the OTK. We've even had an entire format defined by this dynamic. The meta of Dino Rabbit format was largely focused on pitting the negate-heavy Dino Rabbits against the destructive capabilities of Full Power and Zekdors. The difference between then and now, though, is that this go-first, go-second dynamic seems to be at its most extreme, and it seems to permeate every level of the game. Previously, these strategies were more niche, usually existing alongside more balanced decks, and the slower nature of the game meant that most decks didn't have to devote all their resources to just being strong at either offense or defense. These days, though, the game has evolved so that if you go first, and you can't end your turn with at least one negation or floodgate on board, your opponent is probably going to overrun you completely by turn 2. Likewise, if you go second, and you can't break significant portions of your opponent's board, or prevent them from building it in the first place with things like hand traps, you're going to be overrun in the next turn, or just prevented from playing at all. In this environment, deck building has taken on an all-or-nothing approach, where, to even stand a chance, decks must focus entirely on either a go-first or a go-second strategy. What does this mean for deck building? Well, when it comes to individual card choices, free board wipes like Raigeki and Dark Hole, which previously would have been staples played in nearly every deck, now have no place in go-first decks. They simply aren't useful on the first turn when your opponent has no board to destroy, and it's so important that every resource in your hand be used to build a strong defensive board that playing any card that doesn't help with that, no matter how powerful it is on subsequent turns, can hurt the deck. Along those same lines, if you're playing a go-second deck, there's almost no reason to play traditional traps, just because they can't assist you in taking apart your opponent's board on your first turn. Instead, there's a focus on hand traps or similar cards like Infinite and Permanence, cards that allow go-second decks to destroy or disrupt their opponent during their first turn, and prevent them from building that unbreakable board. As for decks and archetypes as a whole, this paradigm means that most decks without strong defensive or offensive capabilities simply can't compete in the modern game. A deck without negation, floodgates, or a lot of protection doesn't stand a chance when going first, and a going second deck that can't wipe the board, OTK, or at the very least play through several negations is also going to have a very hard time competing. Of course, there are always exceptions. Burning Abyss can grind through its opponent's resources regardless of going first or second, and Sky Strikers, with all its search power and draw power, is a viable toolbox deck, able to seek out both offensive and defensive cards depending on the situation. These two are the exception, though, not the rule. Until we start getting a whole slew of archetypes that can search as well as Sky Strikers, or float as well as BA, It seems as though we're in for an age of go first or go second decks. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I didn't make this video to complain about modern Yu-Gi-Oh! I mostly made it just to educate people. Or at the very least, let them know how I see the game. I've been testing a lot on stream lately, and I often turn down suggestions for both tech cards and entire decks based on this dynamic. I usually won't play a deck that doesn't have a strong offensive or defensive strategy, and I won't play powerful go-first cards in a deck designed to go second. Hopefully now, even if you don't agree with my view, you at least understand my choices. And you know, if you do agree, if you did learn something here that you think will improve your deck building, be sure to give the video a like or share it around, or consider joining my Patreon. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed this short little video. Until next time, good luck, and have fun.